Sahana Vavatu Sahaviryam Paravavahi Tejasvi Navadittamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I'm going to tell a few stories of Swamiji, how Swamiji brought me to him. Some of you have heard some of these stories and hopefully some new things. Last year when I was here, Swami Guru Prasadananda was here, and he told me that once Swamiji told him, I brought that young lad to India. He said, I brought him here to me. And it couldn't be further from the truth, because Swamiji really did do that. Actually, some of you know I was a monk before Sivananda Ashram. I was a monk in Self-Realization Fellowship in California, the ashram of Paramahamsa Yogananda and Kriya Yoga. And I loved Kriya Yoga very much, and I loved the monks, I loved the ashram, but all of those people were like in love with Yogananda. And I didn't feel in love with Yogananda. It wasn't like a romance I had with him. And by Swami Chidananda, his interpretation, The Path to Blessedness, the book, The Path to Blessedness. And I saw Swamiji's photo in the beginning of it, and I felt I recognized him, that I had been with him before. So it created some confusion because I never met Swamiji, and I'm already in an ashram there. And even we had study every morning and every evening in the ashram, group study of Yogananda's teachings. And afterwards, I would always rush back to my room. I had hidden Swami Sivananda's book on Raja Yoga that Swami Venkateshananda compiled, and Swami Chidananda book on Blessedness. And so every morning after study, I'd run to my room and pull my book out and then start reading that. Chidananda said, for a couple months, the board of directors of that organization had a meeting with Sri Dhamma, organization, successor of Yogananda, and to India and I think that's unusual, but they were very close. She loved both Swami Chidananda and Swami Shivananda very much. Swami Vimlananda of Divine Life Society once told me that Swami Nanda and Paramahamsa Yogananda corresponded together. And he said Swami Shivananda didn't correspond with other saints. It was primarily Yogananda that he corresponded with. And when Sri Dayamata in 1959 came to India, she made it a point to come to Sivananda Ashram in Rishikesh and meet Swami Sivananda and Swami Chidananda. She loved them both. And when Swamiji went to the West, what year did Swamiji first go to the West, Ramsrup? Was it 59 or?
59.
Yeah, when he also went to the West, he made it a point to go to Self-Realization Fellowship and meet Sri Dayamata, and so did Swami Venkateshananda. So in 1991, in September, I had to come to India because they gave that order, Sri Dayamata gave that directive that I should come. And I didn't know it, but I came on Swamiji's 75th birthday celebration. Very auspicious time to come and serve there. And then we went to Mussoorie for a retreat. And they told Swamiji, there's a monk who wants to join the ashram. And Swamiji thought it's like a Catholic monk, you know, until he saw me and I told him I'm from SRF. Yogananda's organization. He said, yes, yes, there's no problem. Please come into the ashram. For the first 2 years, Swamiji did not give me any service in the ashram. And in SRF, you work 7 hours a day, 6 a week. You meditate an average of 4.5 hours a day. Then you have study for the day. So I was really used to a very heavy schedule. So, and Swamiji would say, I would go to Swamiji, I'd say, Swamiji, I need to do service. Please give me karma yoga to do. And he said, oh, I need to do karma yoga. Oh, yes, yes, I'm thinking about it. I'll get back with you. And then it would happen again. He would go on tour again. This went on for 2 years. So one time, I'm rather frustrated because of this. I wanted to be of service in the ashram, you know. And Swami Vimalananda would say, just go and sweep your room, clean your room, that's your service. Well, you can only clean your room so much. So one time my room was on the top of Vaikuntha Dham, it's the main monks building, and it was 43 or 45 degrees outside. The electricity had been gone out for 4 days. So we had, you know, even the water didn't pump anymore. It was really hot, no fan. So I started saying, who is Swami Chidananda? Who is Swami Chidananda? I really wanted to know who is Swami Chidananda. I just did that in my mind. Who is Swami Chidananda? And from doing that, I lost consciousness. So they call that Guru Yoga, and that was Swamiji's real blessing for me. Eventually, I decided, well, I know how to type, so I'll go in the computer department. Swami Nityananda's there, and they're typing Swami Sivananda's books, all of his close to 500 books, into the computer, and I'll volunteer and type Swami Sivananda's books. One day I went too quick, I missed a paragraph in typing, and somebody wanted to make an issue of it, made a complaint, went to Swamiji, Guru Maharaj Swami Chidananda. He called me to Guru Nivas. And I waited about 4 hours. And I always thought, the more I have to wait, the better for Swamiji. A lot of people get angry. Why is Swamiji making me wait so long? I always thought, as long as I'm waiting, Swamiji's mind is on me. I'm receiving blessings. So I don't mind to wait forever, you know? And after about 4 hours, he came out of his room at Guru Nivas. And I said, Swamiji, I was just volunteering until you could make a decision what I'm to do. And he turned to me and he said, you know, he's got these huge eyes. His eyes are like the universe. Everything, he sees everything. He once told me, if he puts his attention on a person, he can see everything about that person if he chooses to. So he turned to me, and the long hands, you can see his hand here, the hand of a yogi, you know, a Jiva Mukta. And he turned, he said, you know, many people say Swami Chidananda cannot make decisions. And they're absolutely right. Which, you know, stunned me. And he said, because I wait, and I wait, and I wait until I know it's God's will. And then I make my move. Whereas many people go quickly into a situation, they find out it was the wrong thing, they have to backtrack. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So then that's when Swamiji brought me into Guru Nivas to start serving him. So I did mostly, I took care of his food and sometimes his clothes and sometimes dictation, but I wanted to feed Swamiji. Our biggest problem was to get Swamiji to eat something. And I mean, because in the summer, he didn't want to eat hardly anything. He would take tea in the morning, And if we could get him to eat some breadsticks or something with a mango and some yogurt, that was great. But he needed more than that. In the winter, he'd eat a little bit more. Tiny rotis. Chapan Singh would make these really small chapatis with boiled karela and such, and turmeric. So if I could get, and we thought, well, if I can get spirulina, mix it with a mashed banana, that's got a lot of nutrition. So, and Swamiji would usually eat that. So this insect thing, we all know Swamiji's attitude towards insects. And if I would be serving Swamiji his food, and I would see an insect on Swamiji's cloth, and I would try to, and it took us forever just to get Swamiji to sit down to eat something. It's a big ritual just to get him to sit down. So then you would see an insect on his cloth, and Swamiji, there's an insect, and you want to go, and you're not planning to hurt the insect. You want to take it off of Swamiji's cloth. No, 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 don't touch it, don't touch it. So then Swamiji would get up. He would slowly turn his cloth inside out, taking it off, so it's not to not only injure the insect, but to disturb it, not to disturb it. And then he would take it outside and find a good place for it. Now, my Rakshasa mind, my Asura mind, is not as evolved as Swamiji's. So one time we were here in Uttarkashi, in the building next door, which was built mainly for Swamiji. Swamiji has the middle floor. And Swamiji put me on that room on the top. It was supposed to be a meditation room. And at that time, it had no windows. It was completely open. So Swamiji said, you stay on the top. They send my food to me every day, and I send it up, and you eat it. So there was no glass, no fan, nothing, and I was covered in flies. There were hundreds of flies. And I'd made a thermos of boiling water for instant coffee, and I didn't put the lid on fully. And I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, and I got so fed up with hundreds of flies all over me, I finally took my towel and started hitting them, you know? And I had always thought, because I'd killed mosquitoes before too, I'm telling you the truth. And I always thought that maybe there's a mosquito hell. Because in Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism, they say you can go into a hell for a short time, different types of hells. So I thought, well, if I kill mosquitoes, I might have to go to mosquito hell for a short time, you know, where mosquitoes are all over you. And so when I was hitting the flies, I knocked the thermos of boiling water over, and it went all over of my thigh, and immediately huge blisters came on the inside of my leg. And I took responsibility for it because I had been, you know, doing something like that. I went downstairs and I talked about killings. I said, Swamiji, they were all over me, you know. And I said, Sri Ramakrishna once, Vivekananda was, you know, he was rocking the boat because, crossing the Ganges because they were talking bad of his guru, Sri Ramakrishna. And one other disciple, though, in front of him, Sri Ramakrishna killed bed bugs. And Sri Ramakrishna supported him killing bed bugs. So I brought this up to Swamiji. Well, what about the story of Sri Ramakrishna killing bed bugs? And Swamiji said, Sri Ramakrishna taught every disciple differently. It was, Vivekananda was showing rajas and himsa towards the boatman. And this other man was lethargic and needed to learn another lesson. And I said, well, Sri Dayamata, the head of Yogananda's organization, one time somebody asked her, is it okay to kill flies and mosquitoes? And she said, the more the better. Because Yogananda felt that certain insects are rakshasas. They're not doing a good service, and to bless them was his way. So also, we had very special foods in Guru Nivas because we wanted Swamiji to eat. And sometimes, one time, insect got in some of it. So I asked Swamiji what to do. Things people had brought from abroad. Take it out into the garden and find a nice place where the insects can be happy and enjoy themselves. Now, a lot of people may think this is strange to focus so much like on an insect. But I thought about Swamiji and this one quality of him, and I realized this is what made him a saint. His compassion for all living beings, from the smallest. That was the kind of compassion that made him the saint he is. You know, different people come to saintliness in different ways. That's the way he came to his saintliness, in large measure, his compassion for all beings. So, Swamiji was also so kind when I came. I really loved Kriya Yoga, and I didn't really want mantra initiation. I wanted to continue in Kriya Yoga. I wanted to become a Swami under Guru Maharaj Swami Chidananda, but I wanted to continue in Kriya Yoga, and he gave me permission, and he even sent me to one saint, Swami Gyanananda Giri, a Swiss monk who walked to India in 1952 after reading Autobiography of a Yogi. So Swamiji sent me to him when he said, when I'm out, you can go and see him for guidance. So, in 1999, many of us, 20 of us, received initiation as Swamis from Guru Maharaj Swami Chidananda. And the name that we can request a name if we want. And I was reading Tibetan Buddhism, studying Tibetan Buddhism at that time. So I like the name Bodhichitananda. In the Shantideva's book, it's Bodhicitta. Chitta means enlightened mind. Hindu Dharma, we don't even care for a mind. We want enlightened consciousness. Chit, pure consciousness. And so Swamiji liked the name very much. And then somebody told me, and he gave me that name in our initiation as Swamis. And so he said the T is supposed to be a D. It should be Swami Bodhichitananda. So I sent a message to Swamiji. Does Swamiji wanted a T or a D? To answer. One night we got some, and Swamiji stopped in the middle of the satsang in the Samadhi Shrine at Divine Life Society Rishikesh. He stopped in the middle of the satsang and he turned to me and said, tea is okay. And I used to always have to, Swamiji would always have tea in the morning, but in the evening we had to ask him, does Swamiji want tea or coffee this evening? So I thought, I don't serve Swamiji's tea and coffee anymore. And I looked at Swamiji and said, Swamiji, what? Tea is okay. So then I got it, what he was talking about. So it stayed that way. So when we served Swamiji, many people would come for guidance to Swamiji. And it's similar to Swami Yeti Dharmananda's story about that man in the ashram before. A lot of times you would see people come and Swamiji is giving them guidance to a problem they have, and it's so obvious what they need to do. And you're standing there, well, why doesn't Swamiji say this and this, you know? And years later, I realized that Swamiji taught every person at the level they're at. He meets everyone on their level, and he knows what their needs are. If you tell them directly what they really want, so he had to feed them in the way that they were ready to grow. So Swamiji and a couple of great saints similar to him, sometimes when they're trying to teach, like Swami Gyanananda, I found with Swami Chidananda, Swami Gyanananda, sometimes, Swamiji even more, when they're teaching you, it seems very strange what they're doing. You can't understand what they're doing. What? It might even seem a really odd behavior. And then most of the important things I learned from Swamiji was like that. It was years later. Oh, that's what Swamiji was talking about. Because we grow. And even though Swamiji's not here, many of the things he taught us are now in our unconscious. And when they're ready to come forth as we grow, and we come to the right level of development, we'll be able to understand what Swamiji was talking about, and it will still help us. So the Guru is still teaching us, even when they're not physically present. The Guru is ever present. Swamiji is ever present. That's why we pray to the Gurus. Before we start our sadhana, we offer our obeisance to the Gurus. We're creating that channel to the Gurus, to their realm, to where they are. And that will bring, and even in death, that will bring us to them. Thank you.